Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. I am officially homeless. That is, if you count my father being forced to move back into his mother's house as being homeless. But trust me when I say we hardly feel at home here. When this video is uploaded, it will have been exactly 1 year, give or take a couple of minutes or hours, since I was fired from my job as an overnight stocking associate at Walmart. And it has been nothing but a downward spiral for me and my family ever since. I have been slammed through so many brimstones with some degree of success recently to slow myself down, but nothing has proven enough to stop my descent entirely, let alone begin the climb back up. Last summer, I was denied unemployment benefits despite being misled and mistreated by my managers and supervisors. I was ignored, denied, and betrayed by the Department of Labor of my home state of Kansas after 2 years of hard work while narrowly avoiding COVID-19. I was left for dead despite the infinitely small pool of job opportunity in my area that forces the working people to slave away for worse than poverty wages unless you have a college degree or trade degree or a special license, for example, a CDL. I learned that the Department of Labor isn't there to save your ass when you get fired, but they're there to protect the business you got fired from. The Department of Labor didn't much care for my side of the story and defended Walmart, who by the way were almost 2 weeks late delivering my W-2 this year. In autumn of last year, I was finally able to justify taking more food service and retail jobs by rationalizing it as recon. I was fired within 3 weeks from Brahms because they discriminate against workers based on mental condition. APD, ADHD, and paranoid schizophrenia are all disorders that run in my family, but Brahms can get around state-mandated equal opportunity employment via their at-will employment privileges. It's a loophole that the government allows businesses to have because they know that by allowing businesses to bar employment to people with mental disorders, the people would see that as morally incorrect. But would they blame the business or the government? The government doesn't actually care about people with mental disorders, but they anticipate this by allowing corporations to hide behind the veil of at-will employment, a veil which must be torn down with the full strength of the working class and will collapse with ease under such strain. After getting fired from Brahms, I told myself that I would be in a better position within 5 months. 4.5 months have passed already, and looking back, I think perhaps 5 years was a more realistic goal. My father was forced to resign from his new job in December. Our mother lent us $200 to pay back rent so we could live under our own roof for another month. But at the end of January, in freezing cold temperatures and sleet pelting us, we were forced out of our home after nearly 5 years. February 27th, 2018 to be exact, was the day we arrived in Kansas, after just over 4 years of living in Oregon, a place we never thought we'd leave, but had to because the cost of living was too high. Us moving back here only delayed the inevitable. We now live with my grandmother, and none of us feel right about it. My father and grandmother are constantly in disagreement. My father wants to set up camp in the shed in the backyard, which so far he has succeeded in transforming into a hospitable living area. My brother has secluded himself and spends his entire waking day playing video games in the old dining room, which he sleeps in. Meanwhile, a lot of my time goes towards playing Skyrim, procrastinating, since I can't find a good time or place to exercise, listen to music, or work on videos. Our way of life has changed dramatically, but I'm committed to finding my way around it. Celebrity worshippers, enablers, and commodity fetishists have swarmed my channel, which prevents me from talking about music without further muddying the waters, though I am brainstorming better ideas for content. But for the time being, if I'm not working, I've been procrastinating, and trust me, I don't feel good about it. I feel like I'm failing myself and you guys. Unfortunately, some would say that me and my father have failed at life since it seems we can't find a job and pay our bills. Is that really a fair judgment though? Does a man fail at life because a business doesn't want to hire him for no good reason? Is it the worker's fault that an employer wants to hire as few people as possible and pay as little as possible and expect what workers he does have to do as much work as possible in as little amount of time as possible? Is it really a moral failing for the worker to quit a job because he feels he is worth more than minimum wage to work 3 jobs in the form of being a cashier, stalker, and cart pusher, 4 if you count being a door greeter as well? I don't think it is. The store I work at has people quitting almost all the time, mainly key holders too. And while I have seen an increase in hours, I make $100 a week if I'm lucky, despite my official wage being $9 an hour. I'm doing pretty good. Upper level management believes I have potential to be a good key holder should they ever decide to promote me, or at least so I've been told. Despite this, red flags are rising and I don't think I'll go very far in the business. Though it has only happened once, I believe they'll try to pull the same shit on me that Walmart did. They have already changed my schedule once without informing me or even confirming if I'm available for certain shifts, which resulted in 2 no-call no-shows. I feel they may try to fire me the exact same way Walmart did, although I don't know what their policy even is on no-call no-show. I already plan on being out by the end of the year. I'm going to try for 2 manufacturing jobs in spring and again in summer. Since my SM quit recently, my dad actually was offered the position since he has almost 10 years of managerial experience. If he gets the job, he'll be making $24 an hour, but instead of being hourly, he'll be a salary worker, so it'll be pretty good money. But if my checks are any reflection recollection of what income tax is like, I still have my doubts that his new high-paying job will change anything, especially seeing as how the government is now trying to fuck us out of food stamps, which they have now cut off my retired grandmother. I mean, we need everything we can get. My grandmother owns her house, so she just pays utilities, but with how high utilities were already running her, it's probably going to come out being more than what our previous rent would have cost us if we continued to pay it between gas, electricity, and internet, and that's not even counting our phone bill, car insurance, medicine, and groceries, plus all the shit I still need to pay, which I'm probably going to end up owing on taxes this year, instead of getting a refund. I mean, that would be my luck. How the fuck can anyone suggest that our current minimum wage doesn't need to change? Anyone that says that, I'm going to think is joking, because I speak from personal experience when I say that even $15 an hour isn't enough. I don't want to fucking hear people justify it as a summer job wage that high school students earn to supplement their parents' income. Number one, high school students shouldn't have to work. So long as there are adults without a job, there should be 0 people under the age of 18 in the workforce. Number two, if the minimum wage isn't keeping people from getting evicted or starving, it isn't working for us. So long as there are billionaires among us, people shouldn't have to starve or suffer in the cold because they can't afford to feed or house themselves. There's no reason that anyone making less than $50,000 a year should have to owe taxes, but the natural order of capitalism is that the elite are to continue becoming wealthier, while the workers are to continue becoming more impoverished. A new labor movement is on the rise in the United States. As we've learned from history, if we want the labor movement to be effective, then we need the elite to make concessions. The abolition of private property shall be our next step towards extinguishing the corruption of the elite. Also important is reformation of how we levy fees. We must abolish interest rates and cease punishing those who owe simply for the fact that they can't afford to pay. We need to ensure that those who owe can eat and have a home before all else. If we focus just on wages and working conditions, which are important as well, don't get me wrong, then the elite continue manipulating and abusing the common rabble. We have to do more than demand a new minimum wage and amendments to the fucking Fair Labor Standards Act. If we are to propose the conditions I mentioned, and the ruling class agree to them, then they keep the downward transfer of wealth and power relatively bloodless. But if they decide in all their wisdom to defend the status quo with their life, then they bring upon themselves an uprising, and a violent confiscation of the means of production and riches that they have earned through exploitation of the working masses. Disclaimer, by the way, I do not encourage any acts of violence. This is just me saying what will happen. Either way this happens, the goal of the common class should always be socialism. Class politics never goes well for those not in power, and if those in power are a small minority, as they are in capitalist, feudalist, and fascist societies, then the interests of the larger group are pretty much never looked at by the ruling class. The elite only serve to benefit themselves and almost never do anything to benefit the commoners. If we somehow design a society in which the ruling class holds over half the population, or more preferably, we do away with class politics altogether, the interests of the common class will finally be pursued. If you're the type that thinks of socialism as being a cruel, autocratic, and violent system, then what you've heard about socialism is wrong. What I just said is the idea behind socialism. It is not dismissible as something that is good in theory, but bad in practice. Socialism is practiced in countries such as Cuba, who despite being under a 60-year embargo, sees better life expectancy, literacy, and infant mortality rates than the US. The people of that country highly approve of their country's leadership, whereas liberal democracy is almost constantly questioned here in the US, and the two-party system is notorious for keeping the common class divided. Capitalism is good in theory, but bad in practice. It allowed for a larger number of people to see fortune comparable to that of kings and queens, but as a consequence, it has allowed for business owners to emulate their own feudal society on a mass scale. The new labor movement must break the cycle, and that is where I'm going to leave it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, please be sure to click thumbs up, share the video far and wide, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more content like this. And click the bell to be notified when I release a new video. You can now also super subscribe by becoming a monthly contributor to my Patreon for just $3 a month. You absolutely do not have to, but if you have some spare money, I would highly appreciate the support. This Wednesday, patrons got an exclusive look at the first Rhapsody of Ice demo, 2 symphonic blackened metalcore tracks as a little warm-up before I begin work on the 4th Death Wish album, so consider dropping by via the link in the description. But with that said, I thank you for watching, and I'll be back soon for another video. Bye guys.